There's a lot of engineering and innovation that goes into each Trijicon product.
We've heard some really cool stories about y'all's optics almost saving some people.
A sniper round actually hit his ACOG, but it missed hitting his eye, so it basically saved his life, and that's really what makes Trijicon Trijicon.
Hey guys, it's Emily with Blackstone. Welcome back to another episode of the Reserve Podcast. Today we have Ryan with Trijicon with us. Thanks for coming out today and being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we had our demo day this past weekend with you guys in Staccato. Yep. Great pair to really work with. Had a really good turnout. Want to talk a little bit about the optics that y'all had brought out.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of different options here on the table. So a few things that we've come out in the last couple years, I guess I would say. And then the latest and greatest that we actually have from Trijicon is the RMR Green Dot. So the Green Dot is basically the same standard RMR that everyone knows and loves. Same great durability, same great features, but now we have a true green dot that's actually electronic in it. So before, we had the dual illuminated version, so similar technology to what we had in the ACOG, but now we also have the electronic version, which is going to be available basically at anywhere that you go ahead and buy your Trijicon optics. The other two that we have here on the table are going to be the RMR HD and the SRO. So these have been driving a lot of demand and popularity in the market. I would say they're probably our two most popular pistol optics right now. So really what we've seen is a lot of people are looking for that wider field of view when it comes to pistol optics. So that's where we kind of took the RMR HD and basically took a lot of the features that everyone loved in the RMR, and we were able to kind of upgrade it a little bit to what people have been asking for in the market. So a few things that you'll see on the RMR HD that's different from the standard RMR is you will notice that we actually have a top-loading battery on that one. The field of view is going to be a little bit bigger on the RMR HD, and then we also have the forward-looking light sensor. So previously on the standard RMR, basically the way that it would adjust to the light would just be whatever kind of setting that you're currently standing in, it's going to adjust to that. So what this new forward-looking light sensor does is it actually will adjust to whatever you are looking at. So if you are sitting in a very bright room and you go into a dark room that's completely pitch black, you can actually adjust that dot setting so it will dim to adjust the target you're looking at.
So that's something you can adjust. It's not like it does automatically.
It does do it automatically,
okay.
But you can kind of set the sensitivity on it.
Okay, so it doesn't go super, super dim if you wanted it to be bright.
Correct, yeah. So there's a few different settings on there, and there's a whole manual to kind of help you set all of the different adjustments how you want to do it on the RMR HD. So like I said, the forward-looking light sensor is just kind of one of those features. Another thing that we've added into that optic is we actually have a reticle in there as well now. So previously with the standard RMR, you were only going to get the dot. So it came in a 1 MOA, a 3.25, and a 6 MOA. Now we also have the ability to have that 55 MOA ring around it as well.
Awesome. So on the line of these, price point, where are they sitting at this point?
Yeah, so these are definitely going to be on the higher side of things, a little bit more expensive than you would see with a lot of other optics out there in the market. I think the SRO is going to kind of fall somewhere between the RMR HD and the RCR and the standard RMR. But I would say that the premium price point that we have as far as our pistol optics are going to be the RCR and the RMR HD options. And really, a lot of that just kind of stems back to what Trijicon is as a brand. Mm-hmm. So we put a lot of time and emphasis into how we develop our products. There's a lot of engineering and innovation that goes into each Trijicon product. They're all made in the USA. And there's really just a lot of thought that goes behind how can we make these the most quality, durable optics that can fulfill the needs of anyone that's going to be using them.
So getting that quality and doing all this, what does the testing entail for you guys?
There's quite a few different testing standards out there. So recently we've kind of been pushing our Science of Brilliant, which is basically our testing standards that we've always been doing. on Trijicon products, but now we've just been putting a little bit more marketing effort behind it. So really, when we're working on the military side of the business, there's a lot of different hoops that you have to jump through to kind of adhere to getting these contracts. So they have to be able to, withstand temperatures from -20 all the way up to 140 degrees. They also have to be able to get shock and vibration testing. And we do that with a simulator that we actually kind of came up with in our factory. And it can be simulated of a SCAR heavy round up to 5,000 rounds. So that way, we don't have someone just sitting on the range just plowing through rounds. We can actually do that in our factory and kind of go through that same simulation to see if there were to be any fail points in the testing, where those came about, and how we can go about addressing that. So needless to say, there's a lot of effort that goes into that. There's a lot of engineering that goes into that. And that's really what makes Trijicon, right? So I think a lot of people see the price tag that we have on our optics, and, it might give you a little bit of sticker shock initially, but our kind of motto for Trijicon is buy once, cry once. And the reason that we say that is because there are a lot of optic options out there, but we've also heard people that have bought competitor optics or maybe just kind of went the cheaper route and didn't necessarily want to get the highest quality, the most durable option. And then they end up coming back to us in the long run because, it just didn't work out how they expected it to. So we really put a lot of emphasis behind making sure that, hey, if you are going to pay that price point for an optic, you are going to get the most quality and the most durable optic that you can find, and you can stand behind it, and you can really put your life behind it.
So even if it's one of those people that's like, I'm just buying it just for fun, I don't really need a whole lot out of it, it's not my everyday carry, do you think this is still a good option for them versus going with another kind of lower priced optic?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously I'm a little bit biased, but I also am the kind of person that I don't want to have to deal with potentially having to go through a warranty return or really messing with any of that kind of stuff. I would rather just get a very high quality optic that I know is going to work, especially, even if you're not using it for everyday carry, chances are you're putting it on a firearm that you're using for home protection or something along those lines where, you want to be able to trust it if you do get yourself in the situation where you need to use it. So that's really where we kind of push, hey, we make these for the military, we make these for law enforcement. It holds up to all of their testing standards. So if it holds up to their testing standards, you know that you can put your life behind it. And honestly, the optics that we're making on the military side of the business are the exact same optics that we make for the commercial market as well.
So everybody gets the best, well-rounded, can do all the things, hold up to all the durability tests and all of that.
Yeah, and we kind of didn't want to sacrifice anything and, make a specific SKU for the commercial market. Really, we do have commercial SKUs versus military SKUs, but the only difference between them is the Bible verses that we put on them. The military decided that they wanted to go away from that years and years ago, but we still continue to put them on the commercial SKUs that we offer in the market.
And what is that you have on those?
It varies from optic to optic, but we actually have a location on our website where you can look up. Each one is going to be kind of inscribed with a little Bible verse on it, and then you can go to our website and it'll tell you what that exact verse is.
It's pretty cool. I didn't realize you did that with them. That's kind of a neat little thing to put on it with the company.
Yeah, so Trijicon, I think a lot of people might have the perception that Trijicon is a much bigger and more corporate company than it actually is. Really, when it comes down to it, Trijicon is still a family-owned company. We're privately owned, and the Bindon family really kind of takes a lot of pride in the company that they've built. And part of what the foundation is that it's a Christian-based company. We stand behind that. We still put the Bible verses on all of our optics, but we also are, really focusing on the things that we want to focus on as opposed to necessarily what's going to drive sales. So yes, do we want to make optics that are going to sell well in the market? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, we are making optics that are going to fulfill the needs of military use, for the professional users, but also for the everyday user as well that, probably will use them in a situation that could be deemed in a more professional manner.
Circling back to the military stuff, we've heard some really cool stories about kind of y'all's optics almost saving some people from that standpoint. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we've really been pushing our stories of durability as of recent. So on our website, we actually have a full list of, I think there's about 8 or 9 different ones, and that's just a few that we've been able to actually obtain the optics from the actual users. We've had plenty of other people reach out and give us their stories as well, but a couple that I'll touch on that I thought were pretty cool was we kind of had one that we deemed as the luckiest guy in Fallujah, but he had an ACOG that he was using in service, and a sniper round actually hit his ACOG. You can go on the website, see the picture. There's kind of a dented hole in the ACOG, but it missed hitting his eye. So it basically saved his life, because without that ACOG being there, or without having an optic that can withstand, a bullet hitting it, who knows what would have happened from there. Another one that I thought was kind of cool that actually just came within the last year or two was actually on our thermal side of things. So we had someone who, I believe their house was robbed at some point, and a lot of their firearms and accessories that came with it were taken. Well, when this person was kind of fleeing on foot, they ended up dumping a lot of the stuff into a river. Well, fast forward, I think it was a year or two later, someone that was doing some magnet fishing actually reeled up the the reef scope and pulled it out of the water. They did have to kind of send it in, but it fired right up and ended up working.
That's pretty good test of the durability there, especially after a whole year of just sitting in the river.
It looked mangled. It looked terrible. It had a bunch of mildew and all that fun stuff on it.
But it still worked.
It still worked, and that's what really counts, right?
That's important, especially if you're looking at something to kind of rely your life on.
Exactly. I think the other one that kind of really stood out to me is, as we're continuing to push the RCR, which is a newer optic for us on the enclosed emitter side, we actually had a gentleman who had to bail out on a motorcycle, and he was carrying, and he had his RCR mounted up on his pistol, and he slid. When he went to bail out on his motorcycle, he actually slid down on the side. The left side of his body did have, rug burn and all that kind of stuff going on with it, but the right side, actually, the RCR saved him and took the brunt of it. No skids or anything like that on the right side of his body, because it was really just the RCR that took it. But what he found was he went to the range, I want to say, a couple weeks after that, and Zero was dead on with it.
So I'm sure y'all are probably going to be at SHOT Show this year, or 2026,
yes.
Right? Anything new and exciting, maybe some teasers, anything that you can kind of release?
So we will definitely be adding some new things to the assortment at SHOT Show. Not a lot of stuff that I can really start talking about now. And I will also kind of follow that up with, we will be having some pretty cool releases that'll be happening throughout the full year in 2026. So I would love to give you guys more information, but I also don't want to get a slap on the wrist from my boss. So
totally understandable.
For the sake of that, I guess I'll just let you know that we do have some cool stuff coming in the pipeline, a couple of different type optics that we make, as well as some stuff that you guys, all know and love from the Trijicon line that are getting a little bit of a refresh.
So we touched on the RMR and the RMR HD. Let's talk a little bit about the SRO optic. Can you tell me a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so the SRO is a little bit of a different change of pace compared to a lot of the other optics that we offer. So traditionally, Trijicon is known for a lot of military applications, law enforcement, and that's what all of our optics were designed for. So on the SRO, this was actually the first optic that we kind of changed things up, and this was purely designed for the competitive shooter and more of the commercial market. So really, when we actually started talking to people that played in that space, that are competitive shooters, what were they looking for in an optic? And obviously, what you can kind of see with the SRO that kind of differentiates it from the rest of our line is that wide field of view. So it is a huge window on that thing.
So you can definitely tell a massive difference between them.
Exactly. So I would kind of say that the three optics that we have here, this is kind of like your smallest, medium, and then SRO is definitely going to be the biggest of our current offering that we have out there. And really what that does for you as kind of a user is it allows you to pick up that dot a lot easier and a lot quicker. So while that applies mainly for competitive shooters, and that was designed for competitive shooters, we've actually started to see some law enforcement agencies adopt it as well. So we've had a couple of agencies that had some pretty notable bids that we won over the last couple of years with the SRO, which people, I think, when we came out with the SRO, were kind of saying, oh, it's a great optic, but it's not as durable as the RMR. But as we worked with these different law enforcement agencies, I think we were able to kind of debunk that myth a little bit because they put it through their own testing standards. So obviously we have our Trijicon testing standards that we talked about, but each law enforcement agency is still going to put it through the paces as well, just to make sure it upholds to everything that they're going to do with it. And we found that the SRO not only passed, but it flew with flying colors. And, there's been situations where you might have even seen someone that kind of dinged it or dented it, but we kind of view it as, the RMR and the RMR HD, just due to the shape of it, is always going to be the most durable pistol optic that we make. But the SRO is a very close second to those, just because it is still made with that forged aluminum housing, and it's still built to last. So you're still going to get all the same quality materials. You're still going to have that same durability. It's not going to be as durable just due to the shape, but it is going to be one of the more durable optics out there in the market. And we've seen law enforcement agencies confirm that and start to adopt that in their own line of work.
So I definitely like the bigger optic space. I do think it's easier to find, at least in my experience. I'm not really a huge optic person outside of work. I have a couple optics on my duty pistols. I know the RMR is what we run at one of my agencies that I work for, and I haven't tried the SRO yet. But it's definitely one that I would be kind of willing to push more, I think, because I think for people that don't have a lot of experience with optics and they're starting out with it, some agencies don't have the availability to be like, oh, let's push all this training to get you comfortable with it. So just
Correct.
having something that's a little bit easier to really be able to pick up on and be like, okay, maybe this isn't so bad. Build that confidence a little bit would be a good little tool to have.
Yeah, the learning curve is definitely significantly less on the SRO. I mean, that's my favorite optic that we make, just because of that wide field of view. It is almost, dumb-proof, just to make sure that anyone that's using it out there in the market, they can pick up that dot very easily. So that way, anyone from law enforcement to your casual user to, hey, just someone that's putting it in the safe, they want to have a reliable optic on their pistol that they are using for home defense. Maybe they're not using it as frequently as, a law enforcement officer is, but they still want to be able to trust it, and they want to know that they can pick up that dot very quickly.
Yeah, that's really important, because once you can do that and you're not kind of fishing around looking in a tiny little screen to find something, I think it kind of changes the game for people that are new to it. And they're like, well, I might move to optic, I might not. And if they have that availability to kind of pick it up and be like, oh, I can find it quickly, I can do this easily, because I have a lot of people with that in instruction. They're like, well, I don't really like it because I can't find it. And I'm like, well, we got to control the gun, get all the fundamentals, and then we'll work on that. Because normally, if you can control it, it's going to come right back to where it is.
Exactly. And, there's going to be a learning curve with red dots in general, right? But this just kind of makes it a little bit more approachable and a little bit easier. So
for sure.
If we do have people that are a little bit newer to red dots that are wanting to get into Trijicon, that's generally the route that we steer them towards. Traditionally, the RMR has always been our best-selling optic, but really over the past, I would call it 2 years, we've seen the SRO gain a ton of traction, and we are honestly just getting them out as quickly as we can make them, just because demand has been that high for the SRO as of recent.
I say that doesn't look like y'all have a whole lot that lacks on them, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So going away from the pistol optics just a little bit, let's talk a little about rifles. We haven't covered a whole lot on that. We talked about the ACOG a little bit with some of those stories you had, but what other options do y'all have? So maybe not military-based or law enforcement, but, like the hunting world, the competitive shooting, that style of stuff.
Sure. So on the rifle side, I guess just taking a step back, with Trijicon, I would say that we're probably one of the only brands that can cover everything from iron sights all the way up to thermals. So we talked a little bit about the pistol side of things, but also we have a full assortment of different options on the rifle side as well. So on as far as red dots are concerned, we have the MRO SD as well as the MRO HD. So that's just going to be a red dot that can be mounted up on a rifle application. It's got a very wide field of view as well. So once again, very easy to pick up a dot, great quick target acquisition, which makes it easier for the user. Typically we've seen that adopted more on like the law enforcement, so maybe SWAT teams and that kind of stuff where, they're not shooting out to significant distance. We do have a magnifier that goes up to 3x that you can pair with that. So you can get up to a little bit of distance, but those guys that are looking to go a little bit beyond that, that's kind of where, the ACOG, the VCOG, and then some of our variable options come into play. So I think the ACOG is, really what we're known for on the rifle side of things. So this has been really battle proven for years and years and years. We've been supplying that to the Marines with the RCO contract that really that was the bread and butter there for a while. But in recent years, the Marines kind of came to us and said, hey, we love the ACOG, we love the durability of it, but things are kind of shifting more towards LPVOs. So how can we get that same type of technology and move it into an LPVO application? And that's kind of where the VCOG came from. So the VCOG is basically, the LPVO version of an ACOG. So we have it in a 1-6 and a 1-8. So it's basically a forged aluminum housing. The way that I kind of compare it with our customers is, we do have our normal variable offerings, and then we do have our VCOG. One you can run over with a car, the other one you can run over with a tank. So it really just matters to what kind of paces you're going to be putting it through. So if you're going to be out there on the battlefield, that's where the VCOG comes into play. Some of the more, casual users or people that are using it for like 3-gun or something along those lines, that's probably where our, Credo, AccuPoint lines are going to start to come into play.
Let's talk about the differences specifically between the RMR HD and the SRO. Give us kind of the rundown of what the prime differences are between the two. If somebody was kind of teeter-totter in between, what would you kind of pick out to tell them?
Yeah, so there's definitely going to be some noticeable differences on there, as well as some things that are a little bit more subtle. So with the RMR HD, you're going to get that RMR shape, so that obviously promotes durability. If you drop it, you don't have to worry about anything happening to it. Nothing's going to happen to the SRO as well, but it doesn't have the shape that's going to distribute the force outward. The other thing that you're going to notice is the SRO on the other side is going to have a much bigger window, making it easier to pick up the dot, quicker target acquisition. The other thing that you'll kind of notice a little bit if you were to kind of spin those around is the RMR HD does have significantly bigger buttons on the side. So for most people, that's not a huge thing, but if someone is kind of looking for something that they can very quickly and easily find to make those adjustments, that's going to be there as well. The last couple items that I would say that are a little bit more noticeable on the RMR HD, you do have the ability to make all those different adjustments. So like we talked about previously, you have the dot, you also can do the dot and the semicircle. You can contrast the dot and the semicircle. So if you want to have the circle a little bit dimmer and the dot a little bit brighter, that's an option for you as well. So there's a lot of adjustability that goes with the RMR HD. Not necessarily going to get that on the SRO. The last item that I would say is probably the biggest feature that we have on the HD that's not on the SRO is going to be that forward-looking light sensor. So those auto-adjust modes are going to adjust to whatever room that you're looking into. So as I kind of mentioned previously, hey, if I'm in a dark room and I'm looking out into something bright, I'm not going to have that reticle just completely blowing my eyes out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's important for a couple different lifestyle walks there to make sure that you're not jacking yourself up for what might come at you.
Yeah, and that was really more designed for the law enforcement community because obviously there's plenty of settings where, they might be breaching into a room that's completely pitch black. So we talked to a couple of different agencies and tried to figure out an option, and this is what we came up with. And I think what we did has actually been very successful so far and very well received.
With these optics that we have out, or any of the ones you have, we'll kind of go through a couple scenarios. Let's talk about what might be the best option for different types of people. I'll give you an idea of the person, and then which optic do you think is going to be the best? So like house defense.
For home defense, I personally like the SRO if it's going to be sitting in the safe. My thought process there is it's the biggest window that we offer, very easy for quick target acquisition.
Concealed carry.
Concealed carry, so it's not here, but we do have the RMR CC, which is basically the little brother to the standard RMR. So the same great shape, same great durability, smaller footprint.
Smaller footprint, does that mean like the weight goes down a good bit in it? Is the weight like pretty similar in all of these?
It's fairly similar across the board. I don't think it's going to be anything that you would really truly notice in a pistol application. You're going to feel any more, weight differences on the firearm more than you're going to feel on the optic.
Competitive version, where would we go for competition?
So that's definitely going to fall under the SRO as well. So really, that one was designed for the competitive shooter with that wide field of view.
And then law enforcement military side?
Law enforcement military, we're starting to see a lot of adoption on the RMR HD. So I talked about that forward-looking light sensor. I talked about the durability aspect of it. It really has all the bells and whistles that we offer in a pistol optic and gives them the option to also have that customization too.
I definitely see where all of them have their strengths and weaknesses for different comparisons. Using them this weekend at the event we had with you guys in Staccato, it was really cool seeing the different versions of everything, kind of comparing them back to back, seeing all the people come out, all the great reviews we had on them. It was a really good weekend for it.
Yeah, and that's really been a focus of ours over the last couple of years. Was previously we just had the standard RMR. How can we kind of expand our assortment to really meet the needs of the entire market? So now that we have at least 4 or 5 different options out there on the pistol side of things, we have something that works for everyone's needs. So, some people might want that wider field of view and they can go towards the SRO. Someone might want an enclosed emitter, so that's why they go towards the RCR. Someone also might want a green dot, and now we have the RMR Green Dot that kind of fulfills that need as well. So really, depending on what your use case is, we have something for everybody.
Definitely broadens it up whenever you add on all the things that y'all have. It makes it easy for people to kind of make the choice and feel confident in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Reserve Podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every Tuesday on Blackstone's YouTube channel and subscribe for more great content from Blackstone. See you next week.